I actually, and I remember posting it in the member general or something, that I
Mhm.
climbed to 4387, which was pretty cool.
Wow. And give us a little backstory for this VOD. What are we going to be looking at?
Uh, so this was a pretty close Busan game. Uh, except for like the first round because uh of some interesting stuff. Basically, I like this one because it does have some owl players in it, and
Hmm.
that's actually what I'm looking like with contenders players and owls players. I want to see how I stack up against them and where I'm making the mistakes that they aren't.
Okay.
So so in this one I have FD God on my team, and
Hmm.
we're against
Kai
the
and Pelican, I can see.
high Pelican DPS line. Yeah,
Obviously, since this is a much higher level VOD than most that I look at, we'll probably be talking less about your individual play and more about macro decision making and stuff like that, because team play
yeah,
is
yeah,
actually involved at these ranks. So that's going to be fun to see. I just
yeah.
realized I'm not streaming properly. There we go. So yeah,
Oh, there I am.
slight differences in composition. They are playing Ryan Zarya, so obviously you're going to have a lot more freedom to just go wherever you want, and they're going to be forced
Yeah.
into more static locations. Really big slam. So we opt to peel back and hit the Reinhardt here. So talk to me about this decision. Obviously, your opportunity window was gone. You were taking a ton of damage. You were right to get out in this moment. But what you do from here on out is sort of what's interesting to me. So in this matchup, Zarya versus Sigbal, you almost never want to be shooting the Reinhardt. Ideally, everyone on your team should be able to play outside of Reinhardt and Zarya's range, especially with a Lucio in our core. We should be able to speed away from this Rein and not have him be able to do anything. As Ball, ways you can make that easier are pretty much limited to just booping the Reinhardt and slowing his approach down. So the fact that we opted to go aggressive early here sort of implied that we were ready to make an aggressive move as a team. So looking at this from a third person POV, going aggressive here, like this is a huge slam, but at this moment, no one on our team is ready to go aggressive really. And that's because they have the stability of Ryan Zarya and they are looking to go aggressive themselves, which is forcing our core back this way. So even though this slam was huge, it means we're not able to commit anything aggressive because this was our one opportunity window we had, and we didn't try to force any resources prior to it. Does that make sense?
So I was
So
just too late.
I think you were too early, actually. I think what you should have done in this instance is booped through and not committed your slam and wait for your next grapple to wait for them to commit something like speed or for Ryan to try and close the distance. Or if they're just going to commit to staying on point, we slowly burn them out. If we commit early like this with any of our resources and we don't have the same staying power as them, they say, hey, their opportunity window just. This is the same as like Winston jumping in and throwing his bubble down. Then they just say, hey, Winston uses cooldowns, let's run at them.
Yeah, I see that.
So then going aggressive here. Now you've got basically no options. Oops, sorry, wrong POV. You try and peel back to the Rhine, you get booped out of your roll, which is unfortunate. But there's nothing you can do to stabilize at this point because we've shown our hand by committing early. And basically the only cooldown that heavily shows your hand as Ball is your slam. You can use your rolls basically whenever you want. Your grapple's on a very short cooldown. Your guns are free. All this kind of stuff is good. And these are things we want to be using to force resources out of them before we do anything even close to hard committing. So the easiest way to think about this, I would say, is to, instead of thinking yourself as Ball Sigma, like how would you play this if you were playing Winston Zarya? I know you probably don't play a ton of Winston because you mentioned you're mainly a Diva player. But if you were playing Winston Zarya and you dive in and use all your bubbles and stuff like that, all they have to do is just survive that moment and push aggressively. They survived your slam, so it's free for them to push.
Yeah. Lately,
All
I've
right.
been getting. There's been a kind of an anomaly with ranked lately, for me at least, where I get a lot of off-tank players, so I have to. It's gotten so bad to the point where I'm actually semi-decent at main tank now.
Nice. Is Ball probably your primary main tank, or no?
Probably, yeah. Probably one of the best because Ball's more of a hybrid tank.
Yeah.
In my eyes, at least. So I've got.
He's very self-sufficient too.
Yeah.
So again, in this instance, so talking about this Tracer duel, good Tracers you will never win against. So it's good that you don't commit to this duel. It's good you took the health back. Force a recall. That's good. Don't commit to this. Get the hell out of there. Good stuff. This is the moment. Now that Tracer's cooldowns are gone, you've sort of traded cooldowns. This is where your team's thinking about going aggressive. And what I'm worried about is by committing even slightly to this Tracer duel, we're losing awareness of what our team's tempo is looking like. So our team got stalled out because of the Baptiste window, which actually is leading to them dying. But before that window came out, this is like when our team was thinking about going aggressive. This is where you rolling through the enemy team finds value, right? You're syncing up your aggression with them. And even though we haven't burned significant resources from them, we haven't burned Lamp, we haven't burned Rhine Shield, we haven't burned Zarya Bubbles, anything like that, this is still the moment our team is choosing to go aggressive. And this is the moment where, as the main tank, as the ball, you need to be hyper aware of. Granted, because you weren't ready to follow this up, because your Tracer wasn't ready to follow this up, this engage shouldn't be happening from your team. But regardless of that, they are still somewhat committed to this position. They end up losing a duel as McCree, and then by the time you're coming to follow up with your team, we're already at disadvantage. So, again, just wanted to highlight, it's good the way you survived this Tracer duel. There's not much you can do about her marking you, other than make sure you're not committing to it. But even before like rolling out this way, be aware of where your team's going and what their timing is going to be. You are the engage tool. You are the one that decides when the fight starts as retakers in this instance. So you need to be ready at the time that they are ready. You are the more flexible one. They are slow. So you need to hit their timing more than they need to hit your timing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's one of my biggest issues with Ball is that I expect certain things. Like I know the setups and I'm not going on solo missions. I try to set things up for the team, but I kind of expect the team to be in the right place at the right time. And so sometimes I just either jump the gun too quickly or I'll wait a bit too long.
So it's very understandable, obviously in solo queue especially, like it's very hard to coordinate these things. I think an easy way for you to think about this would never think about setting up slams, especially in this kind of matchup. And against a more mirrored matchup where you can isolate backlines more often and take actual duels, maybe you commit slam more often. But against this type of team comp, against a more stable team comp, anytime you're playing Ball, almost never think about slamming unless you know it's going to be beneficial. It should be something that you react to seeing an opportunity for, not something you're planning for. So again, it might help, it might not. But when trying to think about your rollouts and for your setups, just get in position to roll through as quickly as possible and then be ready to follow up when your team is ready. That's all it takes. It doesn't take a big slam. It takes small amounts of disruption, opening up angles for people like your McCree and your Ana and even your Sigma to find rocks and stuff like that. And then snowballing small advantages from there. Maybe after like one or two rolls through or after you roll through the first time even, you can commit to shooting your guns, bait some attention onto yourself. As your grapple comes up, maybe then you go for a slam, but you almost never want to open with one because it's too easy for them to stabilize after. And it's too easy for them to punish you, not necessarily get a kill, but force you out of that engagement and they no longer have to worry about you for 10 seconds kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think I'm just trying to do too much.
Too much too early. Ball is one of those heroes where the best comparison really is to Winston, where you don't need to commit early and you can still find a ton of value. Versus Winston needs to commit pretty heavily in order to find the most value, but he also has ultimates like Primal Rage, which allow him to find crazy value when he's got good windows. And he's also got like the cleave damage and the bubble to keep himself alive and more damaging during those moments. So you need to choose your moments more carefully. Very eager. Again, just roll through.
Yeah.
That's all it takes in this moment. And then decide after your roll, okay, with my next grapple, can I keep going aggressive? Do I need to peel back for healing? Do I need to go get a mega? Should I go touch the point and force them back? You have so many decisions and you need to keep making them on the fly as Ball, but you're limiting yourself in making those decisions by trying to go for too much too early.
Yeah, because I saw them acid choke there, and I didn't like, it's right. I should expect them to like see that we're just kind of standing around there.
Yeah.
So they go hyper aggressive. So I thought we'd be able to push, because it's weird because we're also with this comp. You don't usually play Lucio with this comp.
Yeah.
So I think
agreed. You play Brig typically.
Yeah. So I think I'm playing this like our Lucio
almost like a rush.
Beat us. Yeah, which I don't know, because I think I just confused myself.
Yeah, fair enough. Ultimately, when it does come down to like comp identity, I guess, it is good to acknowledge like the change of having a Lucio and like wanting to go fast because of that. But ultimately, it's the tanks that decide the layout of a team fight, and knowing that you're playing Sigma Ball, regardless of what the other tanks are, you should expect Sigma to be playing considerably slower than you, and your setups are not always going to be advantageous for him, so you need to be advantageous for his setups. And then hopefully the team uses Sigma, hopefully the team uses the attention you get, but ultimately that is pretty much out of your control, and you just need to do the best you can. In this situation, I just wanted to highlight too, when your team is just posturing like this, like your Sigma's kind of trolling by throwing that rock without his shield up and stuff like that and getting poked out. If he wasn't low HP, they probably don't rush here, and maybe you find advantage here, but you can also do things without forcing engage here. Namely, you could touch the point right now. You and Tracer could go duel the enemy Tracer out of position, touch the point, force them to give up this space, create free space for to Sigma to open up angles and stuff like that, just by saving your cooldowns and maintaining aggressive positioning. By going too early like this, granted, they were going early as well, we're limiting our hand, and this time they didn't even have to think about outplaying you because the play they were making already kind of passively outplayed your engage. But even if they were reacting to that mind play, all it would take was them just speeding on your Sigma. Or even like speeding away, and then your Sigma maybe finds value, but maybe doesn't.
Probably should have tried for a setup of the flux.
It's not a huge combo, but anytime you can combo your slam with grouping ultimates, High Noon, Pulse Bomb, Sigma Ultimate, Grav, if it's something you're playing, obviously beneficial. It's kind of like Orisa Halt. If you got an opportunity to coordinate with something, you may as well. Yeah, at this point they just have ultimates and we don't have the staying power. Hard map. Ultimately, I think this came down to first fight, and then them having ultimates and stability to carry them through each fight, but there were small things we could have done. First fight, like I said, as long as we just don't commit that slam, we're a much bigger threat, and we stay alive for longer, we stay available for longer, we can use our grapples more aggressively than defensively. Lots of good things come from that one simple change. And most importantly, on retakes especially, just staying aware of our team's tempo. If that's not happening in communication, if we can't communicate with our Sigma, like where he's going or where our DPS are going and stuff like that, and when, you need to look through the walls, see their silhouettes, and time yourself around them. As much as you'd like to do everything by yourself, at this rank, you can't get away with it.
Yeah. I find myself doing that a lot, or I try to micromanage it. Now this round is gonna start a little bit weird because we're like, let's just mirror rush and give FD God Mercy and give FD God Lucio, but FD God wanted to go Mercy at first, and so we went on this and we got rolled. So after this fight, we just go on. After this fight, we just go on a rush. So
okay. So again. It's weird to say this, but you can almost think of this comp as more similar to the comp you just ran in the Sigma Ball comparative to their rush comp. So they are still a much more stable composition, and the way we work as this double off-tank comp, it's not a very synergistic comp, but it has its win conditions, and that's typically around split threats and split engagements. So similar to how Ball and Tracer would play in the hybrid dive spam kind of composition, you and McCree are one threat, Doom's his own threat, Hog's his own threat, and you kind of pace yourself off that. So you've flipped roles, but it means you need to respect and pay attention to when your other threats are creating space before you can try and find any amount of value yourself. So it means playing very slow, generally, as Sigma in this composition. Yeah. You need to wait for your opportunities because you're never going to You're never gonna match a Rhine shield. Another thing about this composition, like if you ever get caught in a 6v6, you just lose. Yeah.
So like I like you said, I wanted to back. I think what happened, I wanted to back up to bridge there, but
Yeah. It
we
was
started
too
setting,
slow.
we started setting up to take them there, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
well, now soldiers behind us, so we're just screwed.
Yeah. The only way we win that fight
explode.
is if like Hog rolls out this way and kills that soldier, and then we kite to point, and then hopefully they chase us and we can surround them or something like that. But we never win a head-to-head matchup in this competition.
Yeah, I just like I didn't want to take the fight there, but I saw my team setting up there, so I'm like, ugh.
It is awkward, obviously because they had Lucio as well. I think, yeah, like I said, I think you did fine. It's just not a winning fight from where you were.
And then we're just like, okay, let's stop screwing around and just go rush.
Yeah, let's play the game.
Let's play the game correctly here. And
so sorry, go ahead.
I think I do all like. There's a couple things I know I want to look at, but there's some other stuff where I'm not sure if I'm doing it correctly or not. But I think all in all, I think I did okay here. But yeah,
sure. First thing I want to ask is, so you play primarily D.Va, right? You don't play many other off tanks, or do you flex onto other off tanks as well?
I play all the like I said, I want to get into the pro scene, so I play all the off tank. I play D.Va, I play Zarya, I play all of them.
So my first question would be, why D.Va over Zarya in this instance?
Because they're on double hit scan, and I feel like if I'm not on D.Va, then Kai on the soldier is just gonna have free reign.
He'll just be untouched. So yeah, that's fairly valid. What I'm worried about is, since we're playing Doomfist, we are not going to have a clear win condition without a stronger engage tool. So typically, the reason like Mei is played in standard brawl is to have stronger initiations, right? You can Mei wall to block off damage, and then it's just your Reinhardt swinging for free. Your Mei wall threatens enemy or your Mei freeze threatens enemy Reinhardt, so they can't swing as aggressively. There's lots of good reasons that Mei synergizes with this composition. They're playing a composition which just has more damage, less utility. They have Zarya, they have double hit scan. Given the fact that they have more damage, it's going to be a lot harder for us to close distances and get value out of our McCree, our Reinhardt, and you as D.Va. Given this map geometry as well, this important high ground and these long kiting routes and these long sight lines across the map, it's going to be very difficult for you to properly mark targets. And by properly mark, I mean, like, you'll be able to mitigate their damage fine, but you're never going to make them uncomfortable, if that makes sense. If your team is engaging here, if their McCree or soldier is here, backing up, or across the map, there's nothing you can do to stop that from happening. But with a stronger engage tool, if we had a Mei, or if we had a bubble on our Doomfist, he can make them very uncomfortable, and sometimes even get the kill on them, right? So what I'm worried about in this situation is we have a decent composition. We have a strong composition with stability and all that kind of stuff. But given how hard this map is to retake, we don't have a lot of tools that create space for us. And if we play this fight by default, unless we considerably outplay them, we're going to get burned out of our resources before we're even able to use them. Does that make sense? So
yes.
If I'm looking at this from a macro perspective and I'm talking about team compositions, because you have a Doomfist, I would almost opt closer to picking Zarya here over D.Va. Not because D.Va's a bad pick, but because it enables a better win condition for our composition into their composition.
Yeah, and I usually I don't know if I just didn't realize it or if I was thinking more about, I think what it was, I was thinking more about the soldier and not wanting him to. I do actually think we do a pretty good job of contesting Kai, so we can't flank as much. But usually when we do have Ryan with the Doomfist, I would go Zarya.
Yeah,
and save bubbles for him.
It's not like an individual pick. Like, it's not because you want to play Zarya. It's not because you want to play D.Va in this instance. It's because you're assessing the strengths of the enemy comp and the strengths of your comp, that kind of thing. And when we're talking about playing at like the highest level and maybe even making the Overwatch League, more important than individual value is sort of that team synergy and stuff like that. So that's the only reason I bring this up. Because this still is a ranked game, even though it's a very high SR, ultimately it's going to come down to more individual impact in general across the board anyway. So it doesn't really matter what you pick. It matters what you can be influential on. But if we are talking from a macro perspective, if this was a scrim, if we're talking about designing your team comp, then that's why I wanted to bring this stuff up.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, let's take a look.
So I know with this first fight, they just kind of...
Yeah, Doomfist went down immediately. Their hit scans were not threatened by Doom, so they were just free firing. Again, you're good at mitigating their damage, but it's hard to dislodge them.
Yeah. And then we go back in with the nano.
Ooh.
Yeah, I had a nice lead on the high noon there, and then we get a little bit better.
Oh man, so much chaos. Good news is they burned a lot of ultimates. And now we're on Mei, so everything I just said about Doomfist just went out the window. So now we've got Mei to, again, like, Mei wall is good, not just because it, like, stops someone from kiting away, but it also, like, mitigates a ton of damage when put up properly, similar to how your Matrix works. And also, apparently headshots across the map can help a decent amount.
Yeah, I knew she had grab there, and I wanted to, it's all... That's the biggest, the bane of my existence for me with grabs and kind of is when they just stand at a wall and shoot it at the corner.
Realistically, nothing you can do about that, unless you are fully like out here by the time, which again you're not going to be doing. I guess what you could be doing, if we're talking like if you were on a team with these guys, you could be purposely planning rollouts to anticipate grabs, which would mean Ryan walking up first. If we want to use Mei wall like this, we can. But we should know that it's not an aggressive Mei wall, and then you swing wide, holding your Matrix sort of like back at your team and trying to scan for the Zarya. We want to separate Rhine from the rest of the group so that no one else gets grabbed if we can, and we want to separate you from the Rhine so that you have a better field of view and can faster Matrix on people like Zarya in these situations. And then even if you use your full Matrix, just getting out of this choke, if we're all able to get out of this choke before the grab comes out, hopefully the grab doesn't find as much value afterwards anyway. And it's still good use of your Matrix. But yeah, not much you can do in solo queue about this, but some things that are used in team play to be able to coordinate around that.
Yeah, because like I knew she was probably gonna grab that corner, but I didn't know if she was gonna do it when as soon as the Rhine came out, or if she saw more people. So I betted on more people, but she did it as soon as Rhine came out, so I was a little bit late on it.
Yeah, for sure. So we opt to go for some point pressure here, which I like. I think I would have liked to see you save your boosters, however. Anytime you have the option of just dropping, because like it's not going to matter if you touch this payload, like not payload, this point like 0.5 seconds sooner, but it might matter if you have boosters available 0.5 seconds sooner kind of thing. So if you just drop here, touch the point, be ready to boost back up, especially since Kai's immediately turning his focus to you and we're now low Matrix. Thankfully the walls are up, so we can get some natural cover there. Yeah. But again, it was good in this instance because we got our cooldowns back on time. But better consistency would be just use the fact that you're on high ground to just drop off of it. Going on Kai there, I think I would have rather seen a more stable. So knowing where your team is, how much of a threat is this TAC visor really?
I guess not, because there are a lot of large pillars of cover here, so.
And even if you are
just cut it away.
Yeah, even if you are trying to peel for this, you shouldn't be trying to just get the target yourself. If you had like a tracer or someone with you, maybe, or if your team was aggressing this whole time, like if we were crossing this instead of all the way back here, then this is the right call. But because realistically, you're right now the only one he can shoot, and sure, you're mitigating enough damage for yourself, putting yourself at a disadvantageous position like this is just unnecessary. Would rather see you, obviously respect the TAC visor, but just even like flying up here, eating for your McCree or your Lucio or your Mei if they need it to survive this. But ultimately, TAC visor is a pretty bad ultimate, and from this range especially, it's not that hard to outplay. So would rather see you using your resources to commit to what your team is doing as a response to TAC visor rather than just fully committing to countering TAC visor itself. I would say the same thing if High Noon was going on back here.
Yeah, I think what messed me up as well is I heard the shatter, and
Hmm.
I thought we were committing that way at it. So, but it was only one. It was only one person,
Yeah,
and
I
so
would say
Lucio.
so. So this is where I'd say that's valid if you boosted after you heard the shatter, but you boosted before you heard the shatter. So like even if you stayed here because you thought the commitment was coming, you still decided to commit here before even hearing the shatter. Unless maybe you were thinking of like dashing up and then like going down here to the mega or something. But you were dashing, not dashing. You were boosting fairly quickly, which is why I'm worried about that decision.
Yeah, I probably should have just boosted at him just to scare him, and then kited
Yeah,
down to the mega.
yeah. Just even like boop him a little bit. So like he wanted to stand on this edge so he could like hit people around this corner. Because if he's just here, he doesn't really see anything but Reinhardt. So he wanted to be here. So even just like the second that you get from booping him back, same goes for like a high noon or other similar ultimates like a Baptiste window. If you can just delay their damage by like a second, that's enough time for your team to kite and find cover. And then you do the same by staying alive down here, wait for your next boosters. At this point, you've done your job. You don't need to be the one following up, even if that shadow was huge, that kind of thing. You've mitigated enough damage, created enough space for your team to follow it up. Obviously, like we said, it wasn't huge. So best case scenario here is just making sure you stay alive. Nice FD god.
Yeah, he kind of goes nuts after this. I think at one point Kai's like flanking the back line, and FD God takes the 1v1 and wins.
Really good pressure there. So this is actually an instance where it was really good to pressure Kai in this instance because our team's pressure was coming back forward. It's actually a bit slower, so maybe we didn't need to do this right away. But you disabling Kai here is enabling the space on point for our team, obviously, and it's not putting you crazy out of range from our team because there's nothing zoning them like there was before. I still think would have been nice to know how far back our team was, but in this instance, he didn't have a Lucio with him. He wasn't near his team. The enemy team was as split up as we are. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So,
how I probably should have, because Lucio went back the last time the Lucio went back to peel for him. So
yeah.
I think because I saw him without the Lucio or without it, kind of far away from anyone at this point, and I'm like, I'm just gonna scare them all.
Yeah, I think that was the correct decision. I do think though. Okay, I was curious if you were gonna go for the bomb.
Yeah, you know what? You know, actually,
needed.
but yeah, it wasn't needed. But I thought I bombed there. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
think there's this thing that I do where, I've learned that sometimes like bombing as soon as you're demeched, like messes up your momentum, or they'll still be shooting the mech. It's kind of a habit I've made for myself,
So
where
you want to
if
delay
you're
it as
like,
long as possible.
you want to delay it a bit, so and to like mess up the timing, and so like you don't, and like
Yeah,
to get
I
better
mean,
momentum for yourself.
that's super valid
But
against Reinhardt specifically too, because his swings are huge.
yeah, so I think I just waited too long, and it didn't go off. But then I had bombs, so whatever.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think obviously you got saved by the beat here, which was nice.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
100% dead. But yeah, I guess we take those. Free bomb.
Honestly, I don't know why he didn't just chase. He probably could have fished me off there, and then just charged out. I don't know.
Didn't want to give too much ult charge, maybe. I don't know. Nice. So as soon after we blizzard here, after we get killing this Lucio, so one, I don't think the boost was necessary to kill the Lucio. And two, so yeah, obviously really nice matrix use, tapping it off when you see everyone's in cover, tapping back up as soon as we go back aggressive, you eat the shots from the high noon, good stuff. Yeah, I don't think the boost was necessary on this Lucio, he was kind of hard feeding. This is where I would love to see you detaching yourself from the Reinhardt and from your core to be able to get on Kai when it's important, or Pelican, I should say. So this is where you've done your job to make this play work. We're getting a kill off of this play, but your resources would be better used to amplify further aggression by creating more space, by mitigating these DPS, instead of just gluing ourselves to the front line. And this is a very uniquely D.Va situation, where because of your mobility, because of how strong Matrix is, this is something only you can do. So, again, biggest thing here is just we don't need to commit our boosters. Saving our boosters for more flexibility, knowing that we already had a huge advantage here. We can hopefully trust our team to clean up that frog, and then maintaining more resources, more Matrix, more booster strength, more Ryan shield, more speed from Lucio. All these things, it's like Baptiste lamp. The sooner we use these things, the less our reach is as the fight continues. And since these fights are not decided immediately, we need to maintain as much resource uptime as we can for these moments. Go ahead.
I think my thought process there was I thought he might have, because he was wall riding, but he was getting double frozen anyway. So I wanted to try like boop him into the wall so he could.
So he stayed put, that kind of thing.
So he stayed in. Yeah, but he was getting double frozen, so I didn't really need to do that.
Honestly, then, even without getting frozen here, 2 shots from these guys should kill him, right?
Yeah.
He's going for something crazy. Some sort of Reddit play is happening right now. And yeah, it's good that you were stable to make sure we get this kill, and your body is here to make sure Mei doesn't get shot or anything like that. But using boosters is just the one thing I would knock points off for.
I'm
close to catching a grab.
Yeah, so like I didn't have enough Matrix, and I didn't think they would have committed grab there. So and I had used it all in high noon, so I was only really thinking about high noon, and then I tried to react to the grab, and I just didn't. So
so yeah, both reacting to the attack visor and the grab here are sort of like things we need that uptime resources for. So whether that's as soon as the high noon's down, just saving full Matrix, knowing that there's no big bursty damage coming through anymore that we need to Matrix, maybe tapping for fire strikes and stuff like that. And then focusing on using it for our aggressive window. Knowing that our Ryan was swinging this aggressively, we would have loved to have half Matrix on him that whole time. Or knowing they were coming up on grab or the stack visor, we would love to be able to get in their face with Matrix. But like you said, focused on the initial burst damage and stuff like that led to us overextending our resources just a bit. But the Baptiste window is absolutely massive, and we clean up these kills. It was actually a really poor grab location from them, to be honest.
Yeah, that's why I didn't expect it. So
yeah,
like, that's kind of my philosophy. Is like if you can't eat the grab, at least like scare them enough to where they do like
they
solo, where they like solo grab a full shield Ryan or something.
Ooh. So small thing. I would like to see you up here scouting for footsteps and stuff like that as often as you can. You are, other than Lucio, I suppose you are the only person who can realistically do that reliably. And then it also puts you in a really good position to either boost aggressively, defensively back to your team, aggressively over here, do whatever you want. I'm really glad to see you cut your boosters short on this engage. We were not set up to follow up on this wall aggressively, so you should not be in front of the Reinhardt trying to do that, so good job.
Yeah, and I also heard him breaking it, so I'm like, well, get out of there.
Yeah. If you were to use boosters in this instance, to follow up this aggression here, what you might do is like boost to maybe like see if there's anything you can do, but then like cancel by flying up here. Or like you did, just stopping short and staying with your team. I think there is some benefit to disconnecting from your Reinhardt slightly. This might be too aggressive the more I think about it, but even like somewhere like down here, so that you can more easily Matrix damage that goes around his shield as he's moving forward, not just the frontline damage. Because anyone waiting back here or anyone that gets around back here, you need to have a wider field of view to respond to, basically. Typically, you don't want to be just directly behind your Reinhardt matrixing, as I'm sure you know. You want to be off-centered, so you're not relying on his shield, and so your matrix is more valuable.
All right.
Good peel on the Doom. Love to see it, using your body, not just your matrix. Oh, goodbye, Lucio. Yeah, good tracking, good cleanup. Pretty good stuff. Yeah, it turns out this map's much easier to hold than it is to retake.
Yeah, and there, if you see in the kill feed there, Kai was flanking, so if you took care of that.
Nice seed on the fire strike. This was a bit of a commitment. Covered by beat and the fact that you have bomb, it's not too bad.
Yeah, I thought I had enough to like
to get back up onto Kai.
Pressure the Lucio and then fly up onto Kai, but I was a little too short.
Yeah,
because I think I went into the Lucio a little too much before I could.
So yeah, you can't. I think you're a bit overzealous on your commitment of your boosters. I think it was the same of your Hammond Slam, where you're initially boosting to disrupt this wall play, and then you're boosting to chase the Lucio, and then you're also boosting to try and land on the high ground to disrupt Kai. Great in theory if it all lands, but realistically, going in with your initial plan is like deep enough thought for your boosters, and then you should reassess and err on the side of caution for how you're ending. If you're not 100% sure you can land on Kai or 100% sure you can kill this Lucio, for example, you should be maybe falling underneath, waiting for your next boosters, or regrouping with the team. Just boost through and fly back to your team, kind of thing. Because you have bomb, however, and because actually we got beated, which is that was an insane beat from FD God to catch you with that. You are covered in your over aggressive ways, but still, your body right now is not in a place where you're really doing anything for your team. It's kind of lucky that this Doomfist ends up in front of you. Their attention is incredibly split because they overcommitted to using their Baptiste wall. So your team's doing okay despite this. But in order to be more consistent on D.Va, making sure that you are properly ending your boosters in a safe or smart location with a dedicated plan. And like I said, the plan to just boop and disrupt this Baptiste wall, that's absolutely huge value. You don't need to do everything else. Commit to doing one thing really well. Don't try to cover all the bases at once. If you want to commit to peeling for Kai, ignore this wall, jump off, boost over to him. If you want to commit to killing this Lucio, iffy decision making, but commit to doing that. Commit to one thing first, and then reestablish what your ground is, reestablish what your priorities are, these kind of things.
Yeah, and I've been noticing that a lot. That's what I've been trying to improve on this past week, because I've been watching my gameplay a lot more in preparation for this. And one of the big things I noticed is that I tend to aggress on one target I think I can kill, and then they just get peel, and then I'm in the middle of nowhere with their cooldowns, and so like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah, so the example here with Kai was probably that best example of that. And really, all that comes down to is just taking in more information most of the time. If you had known how far back your team was and how much they were respecting TacVisor, you would never do that. You disrupt him, but you wouldn't commit. If you had known that your boosters weren't going to reach Kai in this instance, you never would have tried. You would have thought about it, okay, I did enough, let's wait for my next set of boosters. And this is, I don't want to say a common problem, but it's sort of like you have too many options and you're spoiled for choice. It's a situation where you're worried too much about doing enough that you're trying to do too much, right?
Yeah.
And I think the same is true on your ball play, and the only remedy for this is just getting better information about your decisions, and realizing that you have limits. Like, realistically, D.Va does a lot, but she doesn't do everything. So understanding you have limits and limiting yourself, and I wouldn't say more often than not, but more often than you're currently doing, erring on the side of caution will benefit you in the long run.
And I think another part of it is I'm still like, I'm still like a giant like fanboy, so
so you see these pro players, so you're like, oh shit.
I see pro players, I gotta play good. So I don't want to like feel I don't want to feel useless, so I try to do too much.
Gotcha. Do you currently scrim on a team?
What I'm doing right now, the first tournament I really did was if you've heard of League Zero, I did that last year.
Not so familiar, but I'm assuming it's one of those regular cups that go on.
It's a for fun. It has divisions where it has divisions for every rank, and I was in I tried doing the highest one. And now I'm doing it again this year, which season 4 is starting in a bit. So I'm going to do that, and I think with this, and I'm going to do a couple more things here and there. At some point soon, I want to try out and find an open division team that I can play with.
Yeah, awesome. I would say like sooner better than later. Like, even if you
Yeah.
don't feel 100% confident, like you're ready for a team, try out. Even if the team's like way below your skill rating, get some experience in a match environment. Because the problem you're describing to me about being, I don't want to use the word nervous, but like have that sort of performance anxiety around pro players. This is an exact parallel to when people join teams for the first time and then go into their first match. It's stage anxiety. They're worried about performance because this is where everything is going to be judged. This is where you see pro players in the enemy teams like, this is where I can really test myself, but it's also where people are going to see where I really am. So the best way to get through that type of anxiety, that stage fright sort of thing, is to put yourself through the reps. Join a team, play in matches, prove yourself to yourself as well as to your teammates and to the enemy over and over again, and that anxiety will just melt away. If you are truly serious about wanting to go pro and wanting to join pro level teams, join contenders, join open division, join Overwatch League eventually, you need to get a lot more experience under your belt in those situations, because it's not just about your peaks. It's about how level-headed you can be. It's about how consistent you can be in your play. And if even the slightest mental test of like going against pros can sort of shake you a bit and shake your play, it's a game changer when it comes down to match day. And that can be the difference between winning or losing game 7 in the Overwatch League finals or something like that, you know? So biggest recommendation would be, don't sweat too much about performing well, but go through the motions and put yourself through the training of playing on a team, playing in more tournaments as much as you can, because there's nothing like it. You don't get the same experience from ranked, obviously, as I'm sure you know, and you don't really find the same type of pressure anywhere else in the game other than playing in officials.
Just me jamming the karaoke.
Good stuff. All right, we're on straight up brawl right at the gate. We're unstoppable now.
Yeah.
Good pressure on Kai.
They're actually back out, so I learned.
Yeah, look at you. It's like, your job isn't to kill him, right? Your job is to prevent him from doing damage for as long as possible. Your Matrix can do that for a short amount of time, but you pressuring him down to half health, forcing him to run away, use his heal station, reposition, that's a full like 5 to 10 seconds that you're taking him out of a fight. So you're doing your job. And a good thing to remember as D.Va, you will often be back in position, back with resources, back at full HP before this soldier will. So as long as you can do that consistently, you're doing your job. And like we mentioned before, it's not just about finding value in like everywhere you go. It's finding value in like one location and then changing your decision to somewhere else as the fight continues. You're not going to 100% commit to the soldier every time, every fight. You're going to commit to him when it makes sense to, and then you're going to have your boosters back, you're going to have your matrix back to commit somewhere else as more trouble is brewing around your team. So yeah, this is really good. And sometimes you do get the kill. In that case, when he was fully isolated, near the edge even, you got backup from FD COD, sometimes it nets a kill. But you don't go in with the intention of finding the kill. I guess that's the difference I want to highlight there.
Yeah. I feel like I need to tell them, it's like, you don't have to. Your first D.Va has a lot of burst damage, but first and foremost you're a tank, so you don't have to go for kills. You can just go for disruption.
You are a utility hero more than anything, more than a damage hero. Even something like that, like this is like super innocent looking, but like even if you see Kai like getting any amount of healing, or he puts his healing station down and you're not getting healing from your Baptiste for whatever reason, back out. You're not doing anything to get that kill, so you just wait out for your next important moment.
And I mess up here in a second, because I saw us get a couple of kills, and I underestimated how long the amp matrix would last, so I just kind of explode there.
If you are looking to go aggressive in this situation, would like to see waiting for your matrix. I noticed how low it was. So if you're looking to drop like this, drop with at least like half matrix, so you can absorb stuff like instant burst damage, helix, rocket, flashbang, and then you have time to react with your boosters to either go aggressively. If it's only this McCree here, you can boost and kill him. If it's all three of these people, as we're seeing now, maybe you just boost back to safety, boost up to this high ground, these kind of things. It's not a bad decision to put your body here, but you didn't have the resources to maintain this position or even give yourself enough time to react to the amount of pressure coming through. So all that takes is a little bit of patience, waiting for half your matrix, which is like literally like half a second, and then you drop with matrix.
I also think like that flashbang confused me a second ago, because like I think he accidentally hit me with that, and so I thought he was behind me. So you see me turn there to matrix nothing.
Yeah. And then
I jump down and he's right there, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm dead. And then here we kind of mess up.
So I think you overcommitted a little here, and I think you thought you knew where Kai was, and you were hunting for him. But you ended up finding Pelican and ended up committing onto him. So we see the blizzard come through. Kai is currently in main, actually. So there's two ways we can deal with this threat as a team, not just as an individual. We either commit and ignore him into this space, and he's forced to come all the way out here, in which case we would need you to mark him at this instance if we are committing here, which it looks to be what we're doing. We are committing into this blizzard. So instead of being the one, again, to go for kills, slightly similar to that Lucio we saw before, instead of being the one to commit your resources confirming those kills, we already have such a huge advantage in this fight. I mean, maybe not as huge with our Reinhardt going down, but we have a perceived huge advantage with this blizzard play in effect, that your resources shouldn't be used to secure kills. They should be used to confirm stability. Another way of thinking about this is if we are doing stuff like playing around our Reinhardt, maybe I know it's been a while since we've seen this, but maybe he's getting nanoed and sped into a team fight. It's not your job to do more damage to complement Nano Rein's damage. It's your job to make sure he stays alive for as long as possible, and you're using your matrix and your body to support his play. Right now what's happening is Mei's play. There's plenty of damage on the field to follow up this blizzard. You do not need to add to that. You can try and boot people in and disrupt people around it and stuff like that to maybe commit, but more importantly than securing kills, for you specifically, is ensuring stability. And right now, the way you commit onto Pelican like this, sure, it gets him down to half HP. We're getting a lot of damage in. They don't even have to look at you, and they're not really threatened by you at all. Meanwhile, Kai's in our backline killing 3. Even after pressuring Pelican as much as you did, he still kills 1. So basically what this comes down to... Sorry, go ahead.
I think what happened there is I saw the blizzard and how they were speeding, so I tried to wrap around the side to push them back into it, but they had the speed boost, so they were there already.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, that's not a bad thing to do, but I don't think you need to commit to it the way you did. Go into it, look for the boop. As soon as you don't get the boop, or even if you do get the boop, you don't need to be the one finishing those kills. And then you should be thinking about hearing that tac visor that just went off and worrying about if you need to stabilize from that. Because that's ultimately what ended up carrying them through this fight. Granted, our Rhine went down immediately and it wasn't looking good either way. But just as a priority, you should be focused on. In general, the rule of thumb is, as a tank specifically, and as someone like D.Va who is very flexible, you want to be aggressive to create advantages. But when advantages are already created by you or other members of your team, you want to rely on stability and safety. And Brawl is a perfect example of this, where you use aggressive cooldowns like Maywall, like McCree flanking, like big fire strike damage or stuff like this to create advantages. And then you can push off that, but you no longer need to use those cooldowns aggressively if you've already found an advantage. If you've already killed their Rhine, you don't need to look for the biggest Mei wall in the world to find an advantage. You just need to stay behind the Rhine shield and push at them. If you're already using Blizzard, you don't need to find really aggressive isolations as D.Va and burn down DPS. You need to make sure the tac visor doesn't kill our backline, right? So advantage states, play safer. Disadvantage states or neutral fights, then you can look for advantages yourself.
I believe we're able to retake this pretty quickly, actually.
All right, good stuff. Small thing. I just want to point out the matrix usage. You absorb a ton of damage Generally speaking, we want to wait till we're actually moving through this doorway, and then you want to use like half your matrix so we can like hit the ground safely, and then make sure we're getting the most out of Reinhardt's barrier. Because like ultimately, Reinhardt's barrier is just used to cross this distance, right? And you ate a ton of damage with your matrix. Don't get me wrong, and you kept his barrier pretty healthy. It's over half HP, just barely. So we have plenty of room to get through this barrier or through this choke point. But now, since we used our matrix a little earlier than I think we needed to, a little more than we think we needed to, we don't have it to peel for this Baptiste wall or to pocket this McCree. Overall, this is really good. I like how non-committal you are. Again, we don't need to go crazy when we're already at advantage like this. Nice. Target acquisition. Getting the kill with FD got it. You guys are homies. You guys are the gank squad. That was like a perfect example of my point. Like, you knew this fight was over, right? You knew this fight was already heavily in your advantage. Based on positioning, based on Omori dying, based on a lot of factors. So instead of going aggressive here and trying to kill that Reinhardt, and maybe this is because you respect Kai and you know he's done a ton in past fights and you know he's a pro player, but this is exactly how you should react in the situation where it's not important to kill this Reinhardt immediately. It's important to make sure we maintain our advantage by keeping our numbers up, by staying stable. It's really good stuff. Again, same thing. It's not important that we try and go for the kill on Pelican right away. It's important that we make sure he doesn't get any kills himself. Easy retake.
And then this is the big moment where they call to go aggressive on the Zarya, and they get grabbed, and I just wasn't ready for that. And so then we kind of an old explosion kind of happens.
So yeah, again, when talking about going aggressive here, I like the pincer attack you're going for. Or wait, I went past it. So going aggressive on the Zarya. Obviously, if we know she has Grav, this is the only time this is bad, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And because our team it's not really built to go aggressive here in general. This wall is not bad, but this is a very forced play, and because of how low our Ryan got, because of how far back our Kree and Baptiste are, this is already an awkward play. The Grav does come through, revive it with Lamp and Beat. I think if anything, if we had known we were this willing to commit, like your team, you said you were looking to go aggressive, right? I think if anything, I would have liked to see you stay aggressive over here, to be honest. After, this is like very hindsighty, of course. But if your team, if you knew they had Beat to counter Grav, if you knew you had Bomb to use aggressively in this kind of situation, I think you could have stayed here. Let's go back to your POV. After seeing the Zarya use Grav. Because at this point, I would have loved to see you use your boosters here aggressively, and then drop a bomb like right here. Because there's already nothing you can do to help this Grav, and you're taking yourself out of the fight to try and regroup here when we've already talked about this being the fight zone. So you having an angle on the fight zone and then giving up to take an already existing angle that your team has is basically doing nothing. Even without bomb, you could be committing right now and like booping into Kai. You have bomb to remech if you do get burned down, but you need to make sure that we are getting value out of this position, out of this play, as much as possible, even though it's awkward as hell. Even though we forced Beat and Lamp early, and this is a really weird Baptiste window that we're using, this is our fight zone whether we like it or not, and you took 2 seconds out of potential fight time to go regroup with your team for a more stable position, for sure, but by the time you got there, the fight's kind of over. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think another thing I could have done is when I saw that, because I knew she had Grav, and that's why I was hesitant. Like when I said, "Oh, go aggressive on the Zarya," and I'm like, "Wait." And so I saw her in there, and so you see me flash Matrix on her for a second. I wanted to try
hoping to catch her off guard.
What I probably could have done there is like kept holding Matrix because she used it like right after,
Mhm.
and I don't think she saw me there, so I probably could have like boosted into her with still
Yeah.
holding Matrix, and it would have eaten it. So
Yeah, obviously, I don't have the comms available, so I don't know exactly what's going on inside your team's brains. Um, but a very common play, especially at high level, and I'm sure you've done this yourself, is to just, if you are calling aggression onto Zarya and you know she has grab, just WM1 with you holding Matrix on her.
yeah,
This, again, like, I don't think this was a potential situation where you could have forced grab, but ultimately you did force grab. And I have no doubt in my mind that she had no idea you were even there with Matrix. So I think you probably
Yeah.
actually would have caught it too.
that's why I'm upset because I'm like I could have boosted there.
And then the other thing about this bomb, if you are going to be using bomb to counter tempo in this instance, I would have liked to see it as soon as they beat it. And a little unfortunate, I think it lands just a little bit shorter than you would have liked it to. I think no need to get fancy with that little whip shot you did. In this instance, if you're using it to counter tempo specifically, sometimes you even want it to go along the ground to boot people back as it's flying.
Yeah, I probably should have just because that's deep. I'm still like so like I'm okay with diva bombs,
Mhm.
but I still like it's those situations where I don't know whether to shoot it in and up or slide it on the ground.
Gotcha. So it'll come down to two instances basically. Typical instance where you are bombing aggressively or bombing to force movement or cooldowns. Those are your standard aerial bombs, and unless you have them heavily practiced, don't go for map-specific bombs unless you know map-specific bombs, and these take hours to practice to get right every time. So unless you're going for a bomb that lands like right here very specifically to hit all three of these and inside here and behind here, you don't need to line up a perfect bomb. You just need to know that you're using bomb aggressively. So for example, when we were talking about catching the Zarya off, and then when she grabbed, I wanted you to bomb aggressively. Then all you have to do, boost, fly it up. You know the timers. You need to wait like at least about a second into your boosters in order for it to come back down in time when you're boosting from flat ground. Just do that aggressively. It doesn't need to be perfect. You're bombing with the intention of them not being allowed to play in this space. When you are bombing to counter specific tempo, so the fact that they were speeding in and beating here, all you need to do is make them second guess their area of attack. So make them second guess this movement. Very, very obvious one-dimensional movement that they're doing right here. Two ways you can do that. Bomb at the end of their trajectory so that they can no longer walk forward. They're going to just wait it out and then push back through. You're not likely to get any kills from this, but it will do its job in countering their tempo. Second option, bomb slightly forward. Typically what people will do will they aim into the ground and it'll slide forward. So again, it makes it harder to guess where the bomb is going to end up. If you start it here but it ends up here, it's still not good for them to push forward too much unless they can get all the way around a corner, and it makes them have to go through that thought process of second guessing where they're going to be safe from the bomb. The reason you don't want to do aerial bombs in this instance is because they're typically more predictable about where they're going to end up. People are good at predicting trajectories, so if you bomb up and it's going to hit this corner, they know, well, obviously Kai knows he's safe in here. They know they're going to be safe around this corner. They know they're going to be safe inside here unless you have like a really stellar bomb lineup or something like that. So safest option in this bet is what I would say is bomb slightly into the ground so that it goes up this ramp and boops people that are trying to move forward through it. At the very least, it forces them to stay behind this line. At best, it catches someone off guard who's trying to run forward still and forces cooldowns or gets a kill.
Someone said, but fancy looks cool in the montage.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want to spend time learning map-specific bombs, they can absolutely pay off. I don't know of many on this map in particular that I'm trying to think of, but, like, this would probably be the best bet. Like, hitting this corner directly, if you can fly it, like, over this building, will hit people in here unexpectedly, will hit people potentially in the alley unexpectedly. If they're expecting the bomb to, like, go off, like, right here, it catches people here unexpectedly. It catches people here if they're not ready for it. It catches people here if they're not ready for it. But ultimately, what matters is the tempo. The enemy team is pushing you, bomb defensively if you have no other options. If you're pushing the enemy, bomb them so they can't retreat. That's really all it comes down to.
Yeah, and I don't really care too much about map specific bombs. I think the
Yeah.
only one I really know is that one on Hanamura's second point where you can slide it
Oh,
against
yeah,
the
go
wall
from
and land
main
right
and like.
yeah, right on that pillar on the point. But that's like the really. I've just gotten good at predicting like the distance and
Yeah.
the trajectory of bombs, so I can slide them off and get it in a pretty good position without like knowing a specific angle or geometry.
Yeah, there's only a few pros even that I know of who still practice specific bombs. The game is so fluid that rarely do they come into effect. It's like learning nade lineups, right? Where it's like, sure, it's cute, and maybe you get like 5 ult charge off the spawn doors or something like that. But realistically, these are not the important skills for a game like Overwatch. You need to be more adaptive and ready to address any problem, not just very specific ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, enough talking about bombs. Let's keep going.
Yeah. And then it just kind of falls apart.
Yeah, at this point, we're dying on payload. Nice late kill on the Baptiste, at least. That's cute. We need one fight to retake.
And I think we just mess up our engage because they had their Vaps able to come back pretty quick, and then they have the window set up for both hit scan ults, so.
Yep, just play it slow. This is nice. May's going aggressive. This was a really weird engage. Let me go back. Let's watch this from the top down. So we counter the high noon with wall. We're playing slow. This is just really mistimed aggression from your Mei.
Yeah.
Trying to make it work.
They were backed up anyway, and then they have window there, so we're kind of stuck in that aggression.
I think the problem here lies in the fact that we tried to stabilize here, and then we're also trying to stabilize here, and our Rhine shield is paying the price. I think you made a good call on pressuring point here, because they are playing extremely slow and very respectful. And if we keep our foot on the gas right now, we're just going to get bled out by their double hit scan. Again, their advantage is just more damage than us. Our advantage is clean engage windows. We didn't find a clean engage window with our wall or our blizzard, so we got to play slow and wait for our next meaningful cooldown. Typically, that's going to be Mei wall. Unfortunately, Kree didn't get the memo.
They're already committed to the high noon player. And then basically what happened, like if you go back, you'll see that I start to use boosters as I go on, and I was thinking about, because I heard them set up for the high noon a little more.
So right before you went to point?
Yeah, like right before I went to point.
Okay, so
You'll
right here.
see me use boosters, and I thought about going up there, but then I just stopped myself and just contested the point because I heard them going for it, and I was like, maybe I could help them here, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna explode.
Only thing you should be doing here is, I mean, A, you're finding forward pressure by contesting point. That's good. Or you could be pocketing this McCree play. Obviously, you have no idea how much Iron Shield you have available right now, but McCree should. And he should not be committing to this play unless you were there, like, in front of his body even. So you didn't do anything wrong. It's just your team was just out of sync. Really, that's all it was. Your Mei went hyper aggressive, used everything, didn't find anything. Your Kree's trying to follow that up, even though we're bleeding resources. You're contesting point, which again I think is a good decision, but it's not lining up with what our team is doing. And now we're trying to go aggressive after the window falls, but our team is playing defensively now, and we're just in an awkward spot where we can't find anything. We use all our matrix.
And then he gets a nice shatter, but they have.
But it's not enough at this point.
And then Pelican points.
When we are, so this is a bit of a disadvantage state that we're in, and in order to come back from this, we need something that's going to either outplay the enemy, like mechanically, where we're just going to hit shots, or we need to find ways to use our resources in better ways than theirs. So, same way as I mentioned before, as when we're at advantage, we want to play together, use our resources together, play more conservatively. We can play more aggressively in a disadvantaged state when it favors you. And this is really confusing wording. All to say, I would have liked to see you look for Pelican flanking in this instance. Look to contest the base, because even though you're losing this fight, this is still your space. And Pelican is pushing aggressively solo right now, and you can aggressively take a duel and turn things back in your favor. This is him not respecting the fact that, yes, they're at advantage, but you guys still aren't just going to roll over and die. So if you are more ready to find duels like this, either by going aggressively into backline, like maybe Kai in the backline here as they're pushing forward and trying to catch them off guard at that moment, or marking Pelican and catching him off guard in this moment, that's probably the best bet you have as an individual to try and bring this fight back from the brink of collapse.
Yeah, because
you're not going to get anything from trying to stabilize here or trying to follow up on Ryan's targets because they have more resources than us. So that's where they have less resources. Sorry, go ahead.
That's what I was trying to, because I know we're like, it's like we have to get some sort of advantage, and I saw the shadow on the one target, and I'm like, maybe we could, if we could burst this guy down.
If it was anyone but Ryan, we probably could have, but
yeah.
But yeah, only way we turn that fight, I guess I should say, only way you find an advantage to turn that fight is if you find a way to isolate Kai or Pelican and take them down.
And then we lose.
And then, yeah. So, we covered a lot. I tried to talk more macro stuff, but we did talk about a decent amount of D.Va stuff as well. Do you have any questions about anything we covered in our session?
No, I think we answered the big things, just about, when to go aggressive and when to play more defensively, and then also like D.Va, like the smaller thing on D.Va bombs.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think those two things are our only real. I feel like I've gotten a lot better at, because for a while I was really focusing on Eden ultimates, and I'm pretty okay at that now. So I want to focus on more general things, to where D.Va, that are not like very situational, more just in general, that I can use more often.
For sure. I think biggest thing I want you to walk away from this, it would be to just go step by step. It goes for in terms of improving individual things, but also in terms of your decision-making process in game. So the biggest note I wanted to give would have been from this map. And again, I think this fight, or the next fight, the next fight is probably the best example of this, or is it this fight? Where did they use the Baptiste window? Did I already miss it? Okay, here it is. Again, your job here, you have so many things you can do, so commit to one of them. Commit to doing the best job you can in a specific area, finding value in a very specific area before trying to check all your other boxes. Yes, Kai is an issue. Yes, Lucio is alone and may be punishable. But that wasn't your initial intention for this boost cooldown, so don't stretch yourself too thin and potentially leave yourself open to getting punished by overcommitting where it's not needed. Same goes for when you are answering this tac visor. Like, yes, you want to answer the tac visor. That doesn't mean you go in for the kill right off the bat. It means you go in with the intention of disrupting the tac visor, and then you gauge the situation from there, determining what more you can do. He's got a Lucio with him, probably can't get the kill, back off. He's all alone and booped and half HP. Okay, maybe we can follow up. Maybe we keep chasing him, and then maybe he gets peel after that. We have to back off, or maybe we get the kill and then we can regroup with our team. But it's not a scripted outcome. There's so many things that can change in the middle of a team fight between these decisions that you need to take the time to assess all the new information and make the best decision for that specific moment. You just got to take your time. That's really all it is.
Yeah, I'm thinking too much.
And that's going to come more naturally as you get more comfortable in these situations, as you start testing yourself more and more. And in general, like, there's nothing about your play I would change drastically. It's just the decisions you're making are just, sometimes you're putting things too far, you're planning too far in advance, and you just got to put one foot in front of the other for now. And yeah, other than that, biggest recommendation I can give you is just play more officials, play more tournaments, play on more teams, put your grind in to get more of the coordinated and stressful and anxious part of your brain going. Because the more you put yourself through those situations, the more you'll be comfortable with it in the future, and you'll be able to tackle games like this or tournaments or officials in the Overwatch League with more confidence and less anxiety, basically.
All right. And I'm hoping I get there before, I don't have a job to go after anymore as an off-tank player.
Yeah. Who knows? honestly, if I'm being honest, like I think main tanks are going to start feeling more like off tanks before off tanks start feeling more like main tanks for Overwatch 2. So maybe
Yeah.
D.Va's just going to be the best hero in the entire game.
Who knows?
But yeah, I hope this was helpful. Thanks again for your VOD. It's super fun
Of
for me
course.
watching high SR gameplay, so I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah. It must be weird because I've done it too because you remember I talked about a little bit ago one of the Member Mondays how
Mhm.
I tried coaching a Ply League, and it's definitely interesting to flop between the two mindsets.
Yeah, it's like it's just a difference in potential a lot of the time, and being able to respect that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a different game at a higher level for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Well, thank
and
you
it,
again.
yeah, of course, man. And thank you for being flexible with our times. I know last week was a bit scuffed with everything, but I'm glad we got the session in.
Yeah.
And yeah, good luck with your grind. I'm sure we'll be seeing great things. I'm looking forward to watching your OD team make it to playoffs or something.
All right. You'll see me then.
All right. Okay. Well, have a good one, man. Thanks again for the VOD, and good luck in your future games.
Thanks, Tikatee. Bye-bye.
Bye.